How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today is going to be a good one. It's in live. It's in live. It's in person. Today I've got a very special guest for you all. All right. If you're watching on YouTube, don't look just yet. He's been there. He's got all the t-shirts. He's the head coach of Titan Fitness in Thailand. He's the guy that actually gave me my first job in Thailand. Today I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Dino Portelli. How are you doing?
Wow, what an intro, bro. I feel very blessed to be introduced like that. Thank you so much for having me
Yeah,
on.
I can snip that out. You can have that on your phone. Just announce that every time you come into this room.
I'm gonna have that as my walkout.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we should be for.
I'm gonna get that on my walkout for sure.
First question, though. Obviously, I've done a bit of an introduction there. Just kind of like the tip of the iceberg, though. But for everyone listening who might not know your background in training, coaching, obviously both of us in Thailand now. Give a little bit of background to yourself.
Wicked man. Well, firstly, like I said, thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. So, yeah, a little bit of background about me. I have currently been living in Thailand for the last 4 years. I've the head coach at Titan Fitness Camp. Prior to this, I was a strength and conditioning coach at one of the biggest fight camps in the whole of Thailand as well. I've trained UFC fighters, won championship guys, WBC, any major competition, you name it. I've trained a guy from there. And yeah, this is what I've been doing for the last 4 years. Been fighting. I fight professionally Muay Thai and Western boxing, soon to be MMA as well. So just watch this space. And prior to this, I actually had a very successful bodybuilding career. I was in the UK, competed in over 30 different shows, placed in pretty much 95% of them. And yeah, fitness has been my life for the last, I'd say 15 years. So, I've trained everyone from like top level athletes to guys who can't even do a push up and everyone in between. So I like to think I'm somewhat of a master of my craft.
Yeah. All right, nice, cool. And obviously that's quite kind of like a varied training, going from bodybuilding to boxing, Muay Thai, like two very different things. I know for myself, competing in competing in powerlifting, and then basically coming over to Thailand, it being too hot to do powerlifting, you change, you kind of change. But what kind of made you want to transition from bodybuilding and do something a little bit different? Because I know for anyone that knows, so we're in Phuket. I've seen Dino run up the Buddha Hill, impressive sight to see. What's kind of like, what made you want to change from that? Because I can imagine bodybuilding, the weight training side of things, lifting more weights, whereas now kind of like the conditioning, the skill of actually doing boxing
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff. What kind of made you want to change that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Steve. Actually, I obviously had this really successful bodybuilding career. Placed in big competitions in the UK, won overall championships, and kind of got to a point in my bodybuilding career where I just got a bit stagnant,
Right.
and I got a little bit bored with the repetitiveness and the same, the same old. And then I started to venture into doing some more functional training. So I had an amazing functional coach, a mentor, if you will, who took me through like cross training and high rocks and functional lifting, and that was kind of the start of my journey. I then started teaching classes, even taught spin classes. And I used to be big as well. Imagine I was like 100 plus kilos. This big guy coming in on a spin bike in fucking leggings, and so yes, I started doing that. And then previously, when I was a kid, I used to play team sports, played rugby like yourself. Got into boxing when I was younger, and I think I missed that contact.
Yeah.
That human contact, the competitive edge. There's the difference of when you get on stage and you're like, here's a bicep, and here's a flying elbow. So your body just yearns for that, and especially think as men, there's this beast in the cage, and it just needed to get out.
Yeah.
So I went through a period of time. I actually done a short stint in the British Army as
Yeah.
well as a military trained. I spent a couple of years in four para and trained with them, and that was an amazing experience. So that was kind of like the start of when I started to transition over, and I started fighting again. Started doing MMA and Muay Thai and boxing, and that was about 7 years ago now. And that kind of training just set my soul on fire. It just made my dick hard again.
Yeah.
And that is for me, that is the ultimate, like, putting your will and testing your will against another man's will in the ring, in combat. Yeah, you just can't beat it, bro. You can't fit. Like for me anyway, for me personally, like I needed that challenge, and combat sports actually brought me out of a very dark place in my life. So I've got lots to thank for that. And then yeah, just since then I just run with it, and I used a lot of the experience of the discipline, the knowledge of training and lifting, and then combining that with the functional work and the training within the military, putting that into fight training and fight camp. I don't say it's easy, but it was just that those mental skills were really transferable.
Yeah. We'll dive into that a little bit more in a minute, but I suppose maybe a little bit of a tangent, but you've said there about that beast inside of you to go and have that fight. What was your first fight? How were you feeling? How were you feeling against that?
Bro, my first fight was just unforgettable. Actually, it was a charity event. It was a huge charity event, white collar boxing in the UK. They're one of the biggest charity events that they run, and they run it like a real show.
Right.
I'm not talking 10, 20 people coming there. There was 2,000 people in this
wow.
in not York Hall. It was one opposite York Hall. I forget the name. It'll come back to me. But yeah, had 2,000 people in this arena. I'd sold so many tickets, 200 tickets. So many people come there, and obviously, I was quite a bit of a face in gym box where I was training before in London. So it was a huge collection of gyms. So everyone knew me as this big bodybuilder. And now I was like, okay, the bodybuilder's going to go fight. and I'd actually dropped about 15 kilos during the fight training, during his transition, right? And the guy I fought was 104, I think 105 kilos. He was a big guy. And I remember the week before, one of my very close friends, he recommended this book called Automatic Ambition from Remus Boxing. And it's all about mindset, getting into the mindset of a fighter and taking that examples of some of the greats that have been throughout the period of time, throughout history really, and how their mindset has helped them. And I remember the night before, I'm sitting there in my bath, a hot bath, I'm doing my affirmations, I'm meditating, I'm shadow boxing before, visualizing everything, and I got into the ring and just absolutely dominated the fight. There was not a shadow of doubt in my mind. I was so amped up for it, but to the point where it was just the right amount of adrenaline, mindset, knowledge, and I really worked hard. There's no single stone, not a single workout I could not have done any more. So whatever happened, I would have accepted the outcome, and the outcome, I'm pretty sure it was a stoppage. Pretty sure it was a stoppage, and it was just an amazing feeling. Getting your hand risen and I just remember it being wow, out of every, I had big time in the nightlife scene, right? And there was no alcohol or drug or anything like that even come an inch close to how you're feeling when your hand gets like that, and everyone's from after us wow, such a big performance, and people screaming come on, Dino. My family was there, my dad was there, my stepmom was there, she hated it, she was oh, I can't watch it, and my dad was yeah, go on it was amazing. Amazing
nice
experience. Don't forget that.
One thing that you were saying there about kind of the mindset side of thing, and you said kind of just the right amount. I know, from my experience of powerlifting and rugby, sometimes people can go too far, and then they're there's actually one example in my head. One of our good mates who I used to play with just flew in for a tackle. He got a red card in the first 5 minutes, because it's a little bit too much, but also for powerlifting, getting too amped up and just missing a command or anything like that. And something that I know we've spoken about, the other day, we were saying always be ready, just have that controlled mindset.
That's it.
How do you kind of was that always, and obviously from training, from bodybuilding, military, and having that discipline, was that something that you kind of had to learn? Have you always kind of been controlled in terms of your mindset and being look, I've done enough, whatever the outcome's going to be, that's going to be? Or was it something that you kind of developed over time? And how do you kind of apply that to the people that you work with, whether it be the athletes or that guy or girl who can't do a push-up? How have you developed that, and how do you put that on with your athletes and clients?
So really great question again. So I would say, yeah, first of all, for me, like that mindset hasn't always been there, you know. So it's definitely something that you've got to work with over time. Um, you know, firstly, you know, you know as well as going into rugby, going back to rugby background, you know, when we used to have like cup games, like we won, I think, like the Essex Cup Championship at one point, and there was a few other, like, this cup and that cup and whatever. And so like big game days, you've got the nerves, you've got the jitters, and it's how you use them. And I think as a kid, you don't really understand the psychology behind the sport. I was very blessed when I went into college to actually study sports psychology, and that there is the like the adrenaline axis, like an XY axis, like adrenaline and performance, right? So like it goes up to a certain level, and if it hits too much of a peak, it can then actually stunt the performance. So I had to really dial that in, especially when it came to my first fight, and subsequently every fight after that. Now I'm a lot more relaxed when I go into it, but that's that book I mentioned, this Remus boxing book. I recommended it to every single one of my clients who've gone into the ring, and that taught some really good mindset techniques, such as like visualization. Visualizing that you've already won. Accepting the outcomes. That's also another good one. And you, you know, I feel like the experience from beforehand, so like the bodybuilding, training with the army, the rugby training, and even just going to the gym in general, it teaches you discipline.
Yeah.
Right? It teaches you discipline. And the more disciplined that you are, the more I believe it brings up confidence. Because confidence doesn't come from just standing there in the mirror, just being like, yeah, I'm good, I'm great, I'm the shit, I'm gonna win. Like, confidence comes from, right, I'm going to say I'm going to train 5 times this week, and I turn up and I train 5 times this week.
Yeah.
Because you're then installing that you're doing what you say you can do, or you're doing what you set out to do, and that then starts, tick that off in one week, and then you do that another week, and then another, and so forth. So the repetition of not only sticking to your word, and again, especially as a man, we are men of our words. I like to think, you're only as good as your word, and by sticking to that, you kind of like add to the bank of the confidence bank, I call it. And it's not something that just happens overnight. People aren't born confident. You're confident because you do a lot of repetitions, and because you do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah. And with that, because you've said a couple of times there, like repetitions, do what you're going to say you're going to do. And I think for a lot of people listening, it'll be like discipline. I think sometimes people can feel like intimidated by the word discipline because it thinks as though like, you never go off plan, you don't do this.
Yeah.
Whereas like everybody's human. I always use the example of if you got 90% on, I know if I ever got 90% on a test, I'd be like buzzing. Like it's hard to be 100% all of the time. Do you think that's where, rather than thinking about kind of that end goal of, I know you've said affirmations about in the ring, but just those daily habits of like, if I do these things, you're putting that in the confidence bank. You're like, right, I'm adding up all those repetitions and those daily habits and those things that not just from like a physical thing of like training, but having that mindset to be like, right, I'm gonna make sure I eat this, or I'm gonna do this or do that. Would you kind of agree with that? What's kind of
I think just sticking to your habits. It's about building the habits, right? And not everyone has a fight coming up, or powerlifting competition, or a fucking cup game. But over the course of like most normal everyday people's training life, like, okay, maybe you don't have to do 100%, but if you get 90% of it right, or I even say to my lifestyle clients, the guys who are here they're in for the long run, right? Maybe they've got 50 kg to lose, or 30, whatever. You get that right 80% of the time over a long period of time, that's going to win. If you've got a clear defined goal that needs to be reached within 10 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever, okay, lock in. And then let's say you lock in for 8 weeks, then okay, then we'll then relax for a week or two. And that's where you find the balance, like I said, I've been in the fitness game for a long time now, almost half my life, right? And the main thing is that when you find that balance, you find these periods of intensity, and then learn to relax as well. I think a lot of athletes maybe struggle with that. I like a beer, enjoy a beer, but maybe they don't enjoy a beer on a Wednesday, Tuesday night. When you got shit to do. And I think that's when those kind of habits. If you're habitually going out every weekend, that then becomes your habit and that becomes your norm, right? But if you then say, or cheat meals, for example, because a lot of time with dieting, especially bodybuilding and fighting, got cut a lot of weight. I got down to like 77 kilos before. That was my fight weight, right? I've been 70 is 108 kilos. That's like 30. That's like a third of Dino just gone, right? And I'd still have chocolate. I'll still have a pizza. I'm Mediterranean, so we got to have pizza and pasta, and I'll still have that, but I'll factor it in.
Yeah.
So I'll put it in like Friday or Saturday or Sunday or whatever. I'll factor in if I'm on a 12-week camp or whatever, and maybe there's a wedding or like a once in a lifetime thing. Okay, yeah, maybe I'll have a glass of champagne and a glass of more beer. I'm not a bubbly kind of guy. Beer, but like you know what I mean, or whatever. So like kind of factoring these in, then it also gives you something to look forward to, but it also helps you stay disciplined as well.
Yeah, I think for that, which I think is we might be going down a different rabbit hole down here, but like what you said there about a wedding or an event, something like that. I always think sometimes people will just waste it on like I'll have a cake from 7-Eleven as opposed to like actually having something to look forward to. Like if you're gonna have a pizza, make sure it's a good pizza. Whereas there's not worse than just kind of like, because then it then creates a snowball effect of I'm just gonna arm myself in the gym or anything like that. Like I know for me, one habit that I was really bad at. So my mum used to run a bakery in the town that I'm from, Loftus. So on a Thursday, I had to go and get the key. My dad used to work night shifts. Go and get the key, but obviously, what did you get from the bakery? Because obviously, my mum's at the bakery. Right, lads, we'll get a cake each or anything like that. So now I have a habit. If I go to the shop, I need to have something to eat and walk home. Whereas actually, especially when I lived in Leeds, it's kind of like, well, actually, I don't need that. So now I've changed that to. Have you been to Cookie Dough? The Cookie Dough.
Yeah, I've been to Cookie Dough.
So like, that's not far away from
I'm well versed in the menu.
So now I'll be like, all right, well, I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna have it on like a Sunday. Yeah, that's the day where like I won't work, won't train.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're gonna go from that.
Balance.
Obviously, I've got a goal of I want to lose weight, get married in the summer.
Yeah.
Cool. That's gonna be my treat as long as I stay. And like going back to what you were saying before, keeping that kind of that promise to yourself and that confidence bank. Because if weight's still coming down and you're having a pizza, a cookie, it's like, all right, okay, I just need to keep doing that.
Yeah.
What this kind of goes, because especially speaking with going more towards maybe the lifestyle clients, or even athletes who have got fights coming up who maybe have a background in going out a lot or anything like that. I always think there's a point in everybody's lives, and especially for a lot of lads that I know, where they go out quite a lot for whatever reason, and then it's a case of like you can't keep doing that for forever. What's kind of your take on, is it a case of having just that change in mindset, be like, right, I need to make a change? Or is it a case of like, we've all got friends who like still go out all the time now, and it's kind of like, not, is it a case of like distancing yourself from them, changing your environment, whether that be actually hiring a coach or changing gyms, or does that kind of make sense? How have you kind of maybe changed your environment? Because I know from the retreats that you run, I think that's like I'm a big believer in, if you surround yourself with like-minded people, like great things can happen. What's kind of your take on that, your experience, and what would you suggest to people listening?
Great question. So I feel like that, first of all, as the old saying goes, if you surround yourself with 5 millionaires, you'll be the sick. Surround yourself by 5 crackheads, probably not crack, right? And that is the case, and that's actually quite similar to the areas that I grew up in and around London. Is like you have if you surround yourself with people, especially in the UK, there's very closed-minded people, very closed-minded groups, and the areas that I grew up in were heavily involved in like drugs and crime and just shit, like a shit ways of living, right? And even as I kind of transverse into different areas, and like nicer areas, you know, kind of go through life, and you distance yourself from certain groups of people. And then as you kind of go through life, you know, you then find you sort of you find your people and what you're like, who you want to be surrounded by. And I went through a period of I was again heavily involved in the nightlife scene in London. We played in some of the biggest nightclubs over there, like E1, Egg, Ministry of Sound. Yeah, like we had like, you know, some rooftop parties. Like it was an amazing time to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, we played all over Europe as well, in like Croatia, Hideout Festival, Amsterdam. Yeah, I used to DJ as well myself. Like, so you know, I was right involved in it. So
We'll put the Spotify playlist down. It'll be sounding good.
yeah. Oh, that's why I got bangers. Every time you come to my class, expect bangers. But you know, I was surrounding myself with that environment, with the nightlife environment, with drinking every weekend, you know, with the other bits and bobs that come, you know, the extracurriculars that come with that. And, you know, and then you wonder why it's difficult then to get out of that. And I think for me, one of the major changes was is I lost a few friends, to drug habits and you know, mental health, and it just stopped getting fun for me anymore. Like it was a really, you know, kind of just a dark period of my time, and that's when I was like, right, something's got to change, and nothing changes unless you change, right? So if you you continue doing the same things and you're thinking, well, why isn't my life getting any better? Well, okay, well, what are you doing differently, right? And I feel like that's what, you know, that's definitely that's one of the reasons actually why I moved out here as well, because out in Thailand there's a lot different compared to London. You know, you've got a completely different culture, right? It's not so much a drinking culture. Yeah, I mean, you can go to Patong, something like that, whatever. But like that's the other side of the island for me. That's like a world away. I'm not even enticed by that anymore. I enjoy beer every now and again, but you know, going having a drink on every weekend is not something that even crosses my mind, right? And then you do have, you know, certain friends that maybe you have beer with, you know, you have beer friends, I'm quite blessed as well. I've got, you know, I've got motorbikes over here, I've got my motorcycle friends, I've got some beer friends, I've got my fighting friends, and most of my close community are actually all fighters, or they're into fitness. And exactly what you said, like surround yourself with like-minded people, you end up doing the same shit and you enjoy it. And you know, your social then it transitions from only being able to socialize with a beer to socializing in a gym, in a class, you know, fighting together. You know, some of my best friends and people we've spent hours fucking trying to knock each other out and sparring each other, and you know, and then the like the camaraderie and the brotherhood afterwards. And this is something that we teach on the retreats that we run, right? Because a lot of the people that have come from us, they've either been in a situation where they're either isolated, you know, been in like long-term relationships, and then they've finished the relationship and they're not surrounded by, you know, other strong men. They're just either surrounded by like even nothing, like nobody, they don't have anybody, or they turn back to their drink friends or the drug friends and so forth. So you know, a few of the guys who've come on the retreat before, you know, dabbled with like alcoholism and you know, problems with drugs and this kind of stuff, and again, separating yourself from that environment, even from 10 days, even for 10 days, will, you know, it will show you, okay, there's a different way of life. And you know, especially like me, Joey, and especially me, Joey, and Val, you know, we've all had like kind of similar backgrounds of this moving over here and making a positive change, through fitness or through fighting. And that, I think, is one of the biggest, you know, one of the biggest pulls for a lot of people out here on Fitness Street is, you know, you can come here and it can reprogram how you socialize with people, and then how, you know, what you define as, you know, what you define as your norm. You know, and even like dating as well, you know, I'll say to some of my clients over here, I'm like, you know, it's not uncommon to be like, hey, do you want to go for a coconut after training? You know, whereas you don't have to go out for a drink. You can, but you're like, hey, do you want a coconut? Or do you want to go get some Thai food after training? Do you want to explore a beach? And you could just sit and enjoy a beach and, you know, have a coconut on the beach. Fuck it. Push the boat out. You know?
I think there's a lot of stuff in there because, like, when you were saying, you know, sparring with like your friends or anything like that,
Yeah.
it's not a case of right, I want to try and be better than you. It's a case of right, well, big fan of quotes, as you all probably realise, but a rising tide lifts all boats. So it's kind of
100%.
like, right, well, right, I'm going to get better,
Yeah.
or you're going to spar with somebody. So like for me,
Yeah.
again, going back to powerlifting, I would always go and warm up at any competition with the guy who was like tipped to win.
Right.
So I remember warming up on the platform
Uh-huh.
with Tony Cliff, who
Okay.
won like the British Championships for the last like I think he won it like 10 years in a row for my weight class. And I remember my first national competition, and I got all my stuff on, and I was like, right, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And he was literally just sat sipping Lucozade, eating wine gums, so relaxed. And it's like, right, well, I'm going to learn from him. How did he get strong? And then it's like, okay. Then you go up a little bit, and then you notice other people copying you. And it's not a case of like, oh, well, what are you doing? It's like pass on that advice and having that environment. Because as well, talking about, you know, dating and speaking to people, I think that's maybe something that people struggle with in the UK, because I always remember a coach who I did training with. He was all right speaking to fellas who he was coaching, but if it came to speaking to and he had a girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, well, how did you speak to her? I was just like, oh, how are you? What are you? Like, just like, I think changing that environment allows you, going back to that confidence bank, to be like, okay, so I am going to ask that question, because the worst thing that's going to happen is they say no. What's the worst thing that you're going to happen if you don't do very well in a class? You're just going to be feeling maybe a little bit tired. Obviously, we're both professional coaches. We want injury classes, but it's that thing of like, what's the worst that can happen? All right, you can just get a little bit better from there.
Maybe you get stronger. Maybe you burn a few calories.
100%.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into, so we've spoken about kind of like the environment side of things, but what's kind of what would you say? Because people might be sitting there thinking, be like, oh, that's well and good, but how do I actually do that? Because you're saying there, make a change, whereas what I think sometimes people forget is, you know, you can just go to that class, you can just go and do something, but the barrier is, oh, well, what if I can't do it? What if I like a big one? I literally had a conversation earlier this week about it. It's like, well, what if I look daft? And it's a bit like, well, you've just mentioned there, from 105 as a bodybuilder getting down to 77. You've kind of like shown, like, to a lot of people, 30 kilos, it's like, okay, now how do I do that? Whereas if you've proved it, you can be like, all right, so if you wanted to drop lower or do anything, you can do that. How do you kind of like help clients with that and get over that barrier?
So that's a good point. I feel like, first of all, just to touch upon the touch upon note of, like, you know, like looking daft. That sounds weird, but fucking dafty. No, I feel like, you know, the biggest thing is that everyone everyone has this mental block. You know, we all have this mental block of like, well, you know, what if I look stupid? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I get into the ring? Like, that was, for me, that was the biggest thing when I got into the ring the first time. It wasn't like the fight and performance, because I'd sparred every week, like every week, 3 times a week. So I knew I could stand and bang. And, you know, prior to training, you know, no problem with that in the past. But, you know, what if I look stupid? What if I fail in front of all of these people? What if I fail in front of my friends, my family, and these people that bought tickets to come see me? And coming from a bodybuilder's perspective, you know, your ego is massive, right? Because it's like, you know, no offense to the bodybuilders out there, but it's quite a narcissistic sport, right? It is you like trying to look the best, right? You know, have the best definition, the best symmetry, blah blah blah, all this. And so your ego's fucking inflated. And then you're posting pictures on Instagram, and like, this is how I got a massive following on Instagram, because, you know, you're photo shoots every week, you're this, you're that, you get lots of validation online of, you know, likes and comments and fires, and wow, you know, even just, you know, mostly guys in the gym, like, wow, your arms are so big right now, you know. And so that was such a big thing for me. Like, what if I look stupid? What if I fail? And I think it's just accepting that, you know, sometimes shit happens. You know, it's just, sometimes shit happens. We all fail. You know, I like to use the analogy of what football team you support?
Leeds.
Okay, Leeds. So I mean, Leeds are pretty shit team. But,
Still in Premier League, though. Still in Premier League.
but you know, Leeds don't win every match,
Yeah.
right? You know, whoever's at the top of the Premier League, like Manchester, Man United, or whoever. I don't know. I don't watch football, but whoever's at the top, Man United don't win every game. You know, Barcelona don't win every game. So, you know, first of all, taking that into account, you know, if the top level of athletes don't win every fight, like who are you to not win every exchange or like every situation? Like it's naturally part of it. Is like adversity is part of life,
Yeah.
right? And that's something, you know, I read a lot of books on like stoicism and mindset as well, and like, you know, things will happen, but it's just what they are. They're just events. You know, some are more favorable than others, but you know, it's like how you overcome these and how you move forward. You know, so I would say, so my suggestion to clients would be, you know, just never be scared to try something. Number one, but two, don't be scared to fail either.
Yeah.
You know, I recently tried, so I took up surfing. I tried surfing, yeah, and I'm dog shit at surfing. I managed to get up like 3 times, but you know, it just kind of brought me back to that humbling position of that you know, it's okay to fail. You know, when I went to my first jiu-jitsu class, again, big bodybuilder, Muay Thai fighter, so I've been fighting Muay Thai for a couple of years. I went into a jiu-jitsu class. I got humbled, humbled like to the point. I had a guy, he was like 65 kilos, put me up into a pretzel, and I walked back that day. And I was like, fucking hell. Like, I know I had to go see my missus at the time, and I thought, I don't know if I can look her in the eye today. Yeah, you know, so just don't be scared to fail. You know, everybody fails, and the actually from the other side of things as well, like nobody cares.
Yeah.
In all honesty, like, okay, yeah, your coach cares about you, that you're gonna be safe and healthy, blah blah blah, and wants you to win, of course, your family, whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I'll even get you to yeah, put this to the test. You know, post something on Instagram, and then like anything, like whatever. So now, you know, I've got 12 toes, and then go back in a month's time and ask anybody around you. I remember that post I put up last month. I guarantee you, like 99% of them won't even remember it.
Yeah.
You know, you probably won't even remember it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you know, just care less about what people think about you. Also, one for quotes. You know, the good quote from one of my housemates was, "The less fucks you give, the more fucks you get." And it's so fucking true.
Yeah.
And you know, and then you'd be surprised, like, what life, you know, fuck it, bro, try it, see what happens. You might enjoy it. You might meet someone, you might have a conversation where, you know, like when I come out here to Thailand, I was like, I only came for like 2 weeks originally, going on a 2 week trip, ended up staying for like 3 months in a camp. Like 4 years later now, like, fuck it, you know, who knows? Now I've got a stay in a nice villa, got a amazing life that I live that I'm very grateful for, and you know, fuck it, just give it a go.
I think that's yeah, I think there's been some really good quotes so far in this, but yeah, I think I might get that motto on my phone, because I think for that, like, I literally remember when I came in from work, Daniela, I've obviously sort of spoken before,
Yeah.
Daniela got offered a job to teach over here in Thailand, and I remember she walking in and being like, look, got offered a job in Thailand, I'm thinking about taking it.
Yeah.
At the time, like, I was in like quite a comfortable position with my job, and I was just a bit like, but I mean, we didn't really see a lot of each other because the time we were working, so I was just like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And then after 3 months, I was thinking, I'm not going to work over here, and no one's going to hire me. And then end up working at Titan, and it's kind of like, yeah, things can go wrong, but it's kind of like, yeah, why not? Why not give it a go?
Yeah.
Because as well, just going back to what you were saying about kind of like failing. I hope you're all making notes about all these quotes. There's, I think everybody, what's the best way to say this? I think people need not necessarily like competitiveness to be like the need, but I think everybody needs a challenge. And there's a quote, it's kind of like, a man without challenge has no purpose. I might have butchered that quote there, but it's kind of like, you need something to be like, so like for you with the jiu-jitsu, it's like, right, well, right, I'm not going to let that happen again.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
do that. But then there's always somebody, and I say this all the time in like strength sports, there's always somebody out there in the universe somewhere who's going to be that little bit stronger than you, a little bit faster than you.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I always think it's like a computer game in your head.
Mhm.
If you think, right, I've unlocked that level, right, who's the next person
one,
that I want to go, or whatever the next challenge is.
Mhm.
Is that kind of like how, because as well, kind of like coming full circle, we've spoken about discipline and that sort of stuff, but sometimes people will have that goal, get to that point and be like, sound, I've got that. And then they'll fall into bad habits, they'll fall into that environment. How do you, especially like having fights or events or anything like that, how do you kind of, I don't know if motivated is the right phrase, but kind of like move on to the next thing and keep that momentum going? Because sometimes it can be easy to get to that point and then be like, I've done it now. It's a bit like I quite like a lot of sport analogy. It's like when you win the World Cup, what's better than the World Cup? Well, I'm going to try and win 2 World Cups. I'm going to like you want it, you want to be going. How do you kind of keep that momentum going or keep that thing to be like, oh, this sounds cool. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
I think that's a really good point actually, because what you said about I think you did butcher the quote something, but I like my version of that is as a man without purpose will just drift along the sea.
I think that's the quote.
Man without purpose goes with the flow. Only dead fish go with the flow. So it is, especially throughout my whole fitness career, right? There's always been like we're working towards something. In rugby, it's you're working in the league or the cup or the challenges. In bodybuilding, you're in prep towards your next show or shows, like normally you bunch them together. In fighting, you're in fight camp. You're prepping for this fight. The fight happens, and usually, like I said, I like a beer, I like a drink. I'll let my hair down for a week, or not a week, like a weekend, should we say? Fucking week.
Big weekend.
No, like a night or a weekend or whatever, and then kind of get straight back to it. So I've actually experienced both sides of this. So especially being out here in Thailand, like when I first came here, I was fighting once or twice a month. Like it was like 4 week, 4 week camps, bang, going in again, going again, going again. That's why I fucked off my face at the start. But fucking great time. Like great time to be alive. But like you're constantly in this fight camp, but you've always got something, like you have purpose, right? So like every training session it's like do or die. It means everything. You work harder when you've got a goal. Like that is something I'm fundamentally, like I believe to my core. Like when you have a specific goal that you're working towards, you will work harder. When you have a coach that's helping you do that as well, it's like when a coach, when you're doing the powerlifting class or when I'm on the bags, coach walks around, you're like, oh yeah, fuck it, watch this, show you. And that's the power of like having a goal, and combining that with a coach is like you just double your output. On the flip side of that, when you don't have this, like I've experienced this recently, and I recently lost a very close friend of mine, and I didn't have any, like I went for a bit of a shit time of training. I lost a lot of motivation. I lost a lot of just like excitement for life, and a few other personal things happened, and my coach just comes to me and Monday morning, and he was like, Dino, I've got a fight in 4 weeks' time, just an exhibition fight, nothing big, nothing wild. Like, I fought in front of like 20,000 people before. This is like a tiny show with maybe like 200, 100 people, 200 tops, like not even that. But you know what it did do? It gave me purpose. I was like, that's exactly what I need, because at that time, going through this grieving process, going through this other shit I was going through, I then fell back onto drink, and I was, drinking for like a week. I found myself in a fucking boozer on a Tuesday. What the fuck, bro? Like, who is this? I'm a fitness guy as well, and obviously, and admitting that as a fitness guy and as a fitness coach, like it's just, it happens to everybody. Like we're all human. Like just because I teach fitness and I'll show you how to lift heavy, like yeah, cool. Well, we have shit that we're dealing with, and sometimes sometimes we fall into bad habits. But for me, having that, having my coach come to me Monday morning, I was hanging out of my arse. I was like 3 days on the piss, and I was all foggy, and he's like, do you want to fight? And I was like, fuck yeah, that's exactly what I need right now. And like straight away, like my bad habits of, drinking and, staying up late, watching Netflix and doing whatever and this and that. All of that just went, and I was like, and I just had 4 weeks of locking in, got my mojo back, running again, felt healthy again, eating good again. I wasn't having takeaways every day. I was like having like good food, like steak and chicken, and what we're prescribing, and off the back of that, it kind of then it makes your authenticity comes back as well, because we practice what we preach. We always have done, right? But everyone's allowed to go off the wagon a little bit. It happens. But having that goal, then I think it helped bring you back.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why, especially with the retreats that we do as well, just having a 10-day period or 3-week period or whatever it is, like whatever period that you want to put in, be like, right, I'm just going to lock in for 3 weeks, and at the end of the 3 weeks, at the end of 10 days, or whatever, like whatever that period is, you have a sense of achievement, and that can't be taken away from you. And you also can't get that from a bottle either.
Yeah.
You won't find that sense of achievement in a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work the same.
No, yeah.
So what I would say is, how to get that. We all experience that, and it doesn't have to be like, for me, this last fight that I just done recently, it made me realize as well that it doesn't have to be like the biggest fight of your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the biggest competition. It just has to be something that's important to you, that you enjoy, and that will give you a little bit of focus and dedication. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And then also, what I did do afterwards, I had a fight and beer.
Yeah.
I fucking enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
And that was the best beer I've had all year. I swear to God, it was the best one I've had all year. And then Monday came, and then because I was already in that habit, back into the groove, back into training again, running again, like felt good, training felt good again. And that's all it took.
Yeah.
That's all it took, was just locking in, short period of time, and someone to help, like someone to bounce my ideas off.
Yeah, I think that ties in quite nicely with what we've spoken through. One, you've used that environment, somebody saying, look, go into the fight, having those goals. And I think from there, for people listening, it might be a thing of, oh, does it have to be something crazy or really far in the distance? Like, just set something small and then build up from there. Because as well, it also creates like a little bit of urgency, and it's like, I don't want to be feeling like this going into the ring, because it's only going to go one way.
Doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's that thing of like, and then it's like, I'm a big believer in kind of like momentum. Just like, all right, cool, I'm just going to go straight back into there, because again, might be a little bit of a tangent, but I think you can have positive momentum where it's like, right, I'm going to get back into training. All right, I'm training better. I'm going to eat better. Right, I'm eating better. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas like,
sleep better. Sleep better. I'm going to
Whereas it can go negatively, where it's like, oh, I'm just going to have a takeaway, or I'm just going to have a beer. And then that leads into like, right, well, actually, I'm going to go out all week and I'm going to do this. And then before you know it, you've been out of the house for 14 days and you're like, where's
it gone? I think like the same thing as there's a downward spiral, there's an upward spiral.
Definitely.
And I'm such a big believer of that. And I feel like a lot of people believe that, oh, I've got, like exactly like I said, like I've got to have this big goal, and it's got to be this deadline. That helps for sure. But if you don't have that, okay, try just making, okay, well, day one, first start of day one. Okay, well, day one, I'm just going to go for a run. Just going to try that. Then be like, actually, this week, I'm just going to set myself the goal going 3 times this week. And start small like that. Okay, well, I've got a 1 week goal, and the goal is I'm going to train 3 times this week. Whatever. Okay, cool. Bang. Oh, I'll tick that off. Try much harder for another 2 weeks. See if I can make 21 days of it. Same like smoking as well. So like, going through again nightlife scene, like I've used to smoke like cigars and cigarettes as well. Like, when like quitting that before, just taking it day by day. Same like that alcoholism, AA teaches as well. 1 step at a time, 1 day at a time. Don't look at the big picture. Sometimes break it down into the minuscule goal. And okay, well, if I can do it for 1 day, I can do it for 3 days. If 3 doesn't do it for 7.
Yeah, cool. Quite a lot of things in there. But for yeah, a lot of really good goal take-home points and good words of wisdom there. But the last question is like a sum up, okay, for everyone listening, whether it's lifestyle clients, athletes listening, coaches listening, general public, what will be your take-home points or words of wisdom for everyone listening for everything that we've chatted about today?
Oh, words of wisdom. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm a walking book, really. But no, if I had to take, like my top 3 points is one, it is one, like we said, don't be scared to fail. You know, life is full of challenges. You know, just go for the challenge. Worst case scenario, you might be a little bit better than when you started. Number two is like downward spiral. That's the biggest one for me. You know, this downward spiral is the same as an upward spiral, and you know, just take everything step by step. You know, manageable chunks, and work. You know, work your habits. You know, if you're don't always look at the outcome goal. If you look at the process goals, you are so much more likely to have a lot more fulfillment in what you do and actually achieve your goals. I.e., don't win the Champions League, just turn up to training every day. Make that your goal. And yeah, number three. I think we leave it at that.
Yeah.
Number two, yeah. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. And yeah, number three. You know, fix your mindset. Fix your mindset by surrounding yourself with the right people. You know, your environment is everything. And if something's not working right now, then change it. Yeah.
Some really good take-home points there. I think as well, like, I know, you know, we've used different examples in there, but I think it's always going to be relative to the person. So there's like people who are like completely rock bottom, awful things happened. People who are just maybe just having like a little bit of a hard time. I always think it's like dependent on the person. But if you are struggling, I think anything's going to be better than what you're doing now. If you just do like add in something positive, training, exercise, anything like that, like it's going to be
a bit like something as little as steps. You know, one of my close friends, he recently lost about 20 kilos, and I said, like, how have you done this, mate? And he said, I stopped ordering takeaways, and I started doing 10,000 steps a day. And that was it. No wild training programs. And off the back of that, he started doing his pull-ups. He started doing press-ups. You know, and it's just those small little steps is you know, that's where every great athlete, not every great athlete started as a great athlete. They just tried it one time. And then again, and then they went again and again and again. All of a sudden, you know, you never know where you might end up.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good chatting with you today. Some really good take-home points, gold nuggets of information in there. But for everyone listening who might have any questions about what we've chatted about today, want to reach out to you, look at the retreats that you do, coaching, where can people find you and reach out to you?
So you can find me on all socials at _Coach Dino, and also at Grafters Retreats. That's for our men's health retreats. We do that. We do that about 6 times per year. We've got our next one is going to be next week, so a bit too late to book onto that one, but we'll be having some more in Thailand in October, November, December, and throughout high season. So
cool.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I'll catch you at the next episode.
Peace out.